Hey, greetings everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the FwooshCast. And I am so glad today to welcome to the show a Fwoosh friend, as it were, being kind with his time once again to join us to chat about all things Ultimates and maybe a bit more, but Super7's own Brian Flynn. Brian, it's been a minute, but as always, thanks for giving us some of your time to chat about all the good stuff today.
Oh, I'm happy to be back. And I guess Fwoosh friend, is that more of a friend?
Fwoosh, Fwoosh Fwens.
A
My
Fwoosh
my
friend?
4-year-old
I
might
think
say it that way for sure.
we can make a fund or something.
Wound, yeah.
We should get a little conjunction junction going on there and shorten up that name.
That's
Figure it out.
that's marketing for us waiting to happen right there, I would say.
Exactly.
But the
I'm a
last time
friend on Fwoosh.
be a friend to Fwoosh. Yeah. But the
Exactly.
last time we got to talk, I checked back and look, it was all the way back in December. So the first
Oh,
quarter has just kind of snapped by just like that. And I know from an outside perspective, it's been busy for you guys with a lot of stuff shipping. But how has this first part of the year treated you from the inside, I guess I would say?
I think we've been telling everybody it's all coming, and it's been delivering, which is nice because once people get it in hand, I think people are like, oh, okay, this is what I was waiting for. It's exciting, it's fun. I mean, Simpsons landed, ThunderCats landed, Thunder Tank landed, GI Joe landed, SilverHawks landed. There's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that's landed.
Yeah, and you were reading my mind about that because SilverHawks, mine arrived with me. I know, and I've had my oldest daughter actually singing the theme with me, so she thinks I'm a dork, but she does it anyway. So that's good. And my Joes are actually supposed to be here today, so I thought maybe they'd be here before we started, but we may
We
hear
could
the
have a
doorbell.
really great one of those, yeah, sure, they planned it that way moments where,
Ah,
oh, it's the doorbell. Look
I
what I got.
know.
Yeah.
We'll invite the FedEx man right down to hand us the box, and we'll go. But
Yeah,
Joe's,
I'm sure if you say, hey, I'd like you to come down to my basement, that's not going to go over super well with the FedEx guy.
he's gonna look around for like half a second and then back out and run up the stairs with all the millions of little tiny eyes staring at him in the collection space down here. But Joe's and Silverhawks are something that they've, I don't want to say a long time coming, but they've got a little bit
No,
of
no, you can say a long
history.
time coming because that's the understatement of the year.
But so to that effect, how's it feel to have, these lines really begin, I guess, as far as Ultimates go, and from, what I've been seeing online to, mostly very positive reception thus far.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest part for us, obviously, is when people get them and they're like, oh man, this is exactly what I was hoping for, or ideally even better,
Yeah.
as opposed to the opposite. So, we've always been fairly confident that when people get them, they will be like, oh my God, now I know what I was waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
It just took a lot longer. And, that waiting can get more and more frustrating the longer it goes along, which is completely valid. But it is wonderful to see because, I mean, yes, we're making them for us, but I'm also making them for other people. It is great to have that feedback back from people of like, okay, you guys did a good job. I'm super happy with these. What's next?
Yeah.
Obviously, because that's what allows us to make more.
Yeah.
So it's very heartening is not the right word, but we're going to go with heartening to just be like, okay, not only is it out, but people are excited and they're happy. It's just sort of like that's the last moment, the wash of all, here's 2 years worth of emotions that get to
Yeah.
roll away like the sands of time in a river.
Well, it's funny because I think a lot of people we were expecting, people to get, especially the Silverhawks with their finish, to be able to experience that because try as everybody might at conventions, it was hard to get the finish on these guys to read on camera.
Right.
And the whole time you've been telling people we're going for the cartoon look and finish here, and it was still hard to click.
But it's still got metallic sheen to it, but it's still got to be matte like the cartoon. It's like it's this in between land.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was expected, but I will say, I have Steel Will here right now because he and Bluegrass caught me by surprise for something else. Yeah. Entirely because this whole time we were thinking about the finish on their costumes when I was taking close-up pictures just the other day and noticed that
I think I saw this. Somebody posted something about this.
it may have been me that posted something about you guys have started to use the printing technology on these two fellows, and I gotta say that's pretty exciting. What was the turn to that?
What was it wasn't so much a turn, it's all about which factory you're using and what capabilities they have.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense. So
Yeah, it absolutely does.
not all the toy factories have, the ability to 3D print faces.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. And so this particular factory, as everybody that's been on this saga with me, I assume if you're 10 minutes into this listening to this, you've been in the saga with us before. You have heard the trials and tribulations of fighting the dragons, whatever. It's we had to move from one factory and restart at a separate factory and everything. And luckily that factory did have face printing technology. It is usually it's an expensive technology, so it's usually at the factories that deal with volume partners, meaning I make stuff for Hasbro, I make stuff for Mattel, make stuff for Playmates. I do not make stuff for Super7 because you're not making 100,000, 200,000 at a time. Now, obviously that technology, like all technologies, starts to get more and more commonplace. For all the years we've been making toys, we have not been using 3D printed faces, and we can still really do a great job. But when we can get to 3D printed faces, just I'm not having to, like, if the faces I'm printing now, it's like, here's the white, here's the black, here's the green, here's the white dot on top. And then here's it with the same other eye. Like, the chances for things to get misaligned, you're talking about faces usually have 10 to 12 paint applications. So that's 10 to 12 chances for error. And it's very finite, where with the printer, it's printing one half of the face, then they move it, then it prints the other half of the face. But you can have much more control. And now you're talking about two pieces of, things to match up. And you can obviously be less heavy-handed. It isn't, with the tampo prints that we do on faces and stuff, it's either 100% the color or it's not the color. Or if you're doing inkjet, you can soften the edges a little bit, make it a little less opaque. You can do things that you can't do in tampo.
Well, I think it speaks to the quality that this factory can do, because I didn't even realize that I was looking at it until I got it under like the macro lens, and you could see, the stippling that kind of adds to the shading of some of the faces and whatnot. So that was really exciting to see it on, especially on human or humanoid, I guess, characters where you've got those likenesses. So since it is there for SilverHawks, is series 1 now and series 3, are SilverHawks all being done at the same factory now?
Same factory.
Yeah, and
so
I know that there are a couple of lines that you have where you actually use human faces, where like actual humans. I think that's going to be really impactful with those.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the sooner we can do it, the better, right?
Yeah.
This isn't 100% final. There's crud on the blister.
Oh, there's the big boy.
Yeah, there's a black spot like right here inside the blister. Because this is one of our samples, so I put it back together. So, but
yeah. So
wave 1 is pending.
Yeah.
Wave 1 will be here soon.
It's coming soon. And Joe's kind of not maybe literally in the same boat, but Joe 1 has delivered, and now Joe 2 is going to be close as well, right?
Yeah, this is another example of scale.
Wow. It was funny because I know that the transformed Monstar has the gigantic box, but even series 2 on its own, if you got all 5 pieces like I did, it's like every box almost seemed like it was almost a little bit different just because of all the different shapes and sizes and
all the stuff. Yeah, I have gone off topic already, but I mean, it's all coming out. It's all getting here. It's really good. I think, excuse me, people are going to be very excited by it. And obviously, Joe is coming out, like you were just saying. I totally stepped on your transition to Joe by
No, 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 not
more
no, not
other
at all. Because
Silverhawk stuff.
I can
Because I
talk
just want to
about.
talk about Silverhawks,
I,
man.
I was gonna say I can talk about SilverHawks for a really long time because I think that there has been a, whether it's the factory or you know the relationship with you guys working with them, a step up in like some of the joint engineering too. You've got these kind of mid torso
Rockers.
joints that are going on now here that that move quite well as well. So for all the things that I was like anticipating, really wanting to find out when these arrive, there's a lot of other things that I'm discovering that is a little bit different, or even dare I say maybe a little bit, you know, kind of raised as far as that goes with this first but really second series of Silverhawks. So I think it's exciting kind of overall too.
It's exciting to be done with it. I mean, those changes that you're talking about in engineering, I mean, we
Mhm.
usually make all those cuts in engineering, so we're the ones that are evolving it. So it's not
Mhm.
just a T joint, crunch.
Yeah.
It's more of the rocker there. So those are all decisions that we've made. It's just taken this long to get them to you.
Yeah.
But I think if you look at a lot of what we're doing now, most of the time you see more of the rocker on the chest instead of the ab crunch per se.
It's aesthetic. I think it's aesthetically a little bit more pleasing, and if it's done well, I think you get a better range of movement.
Well, it's more than just front back. You
Yeah.
you don't get as much front, obviously, as you can get with an ab crunch,
Mhm.
a T joint ab crunch, but the side to side. I think I lost you. I don't know. Did you lose me? We're gonna
Oh,
find out.
you blipped just a little bit. Can you see me?
Now I can. Now you're back.
Oh,
Now you're
okay.
back.
I don't know if it may have been my internet ghosts or what, but you were coming through just fine. So
All right.
all right.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean it all depends on what kind of articulation you really want. If you're trying to roll them up in a ball, you'll want an ab crunch versus a rocker. But I think a rocker, you can hide it easier underneath the ribs, and you do have more of that side to side motion, or angles that you can't get out of a typical ab crunch.
yeah. Yeah. Well, like I said, lots of good surprises, things that I wasn't expecting with these. So it makes me excited for series one. And then series three will be out. But I mean, you've been dealing with the collecting audience long enough, and you know that it's always what's next, what's next. So people are always asking, okay, when are we going to see the next series and this and that? And that's fine. But
You
now
you will see series 4 after series 2 lands.
after series two, which is actually series one. What was it?
Correct. Let me back up.
Yeah.
Series 2 you have.
Yes.
Series 1 you're about to have.
Yes.
Once you get series 1, then we will launch series 4.
Now, from a producer standpoint, it's gotta be fun and exciting too to be able to finally say, all right, now that these are catching up, we can start making more and showing you guys more stuff, right?
It is. And there's some really exciting stuff coming for Silverhawks. I think that there's some unexpected stuff in there.
That's cool. That's
Dun,
cool.
dun,
Yeah, I
dun,
know.
dun,
It's
dun,
like
dun.
we're getting to like convention season is starting to kick off. WonderCon, I think, even starts today, and I know you guys are set up there, so I'm sure there's going to be lots of stuff over the next several months that it's going to be fun to see from these properties where it's great to be started in Ultimates now. So good stuff.
Yeah, no, it's long overdue, and thank you to everyone that hung out with us, because
Well,
hopefully it seems like everybody's excited to have them in hand and is really sort of, I don't want to say relieved, but just like, oh man, yeah, these turned out great. I'm really excited about it, and I'm excited about what the future looks like.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, great stuff there. And you spoke about it before because it's kind of a transition there. Everybody kind of thinks of Silverhawks as kind of sister property as ThunderCats, and ThunderCats has had a couple of big things, literal big things happen since the
Yes.
last time we talked. We got Series 6, which was the toy version wave, which I will say I thought those looked cool when you announced them, but I gotta say I'm taken with them a lot more than I even thought I would be. So it's all of a sudden, well, here's an opportunity to, you know, redeco and reintroduce those core characters in a way where it's like, now I've got to have all the toy versions too.
I think that was we knew that there was a lot of people that were specifically saying, hey, I want the toy versions. And but it was one of those things where we were like, it's not necessary for somebody collecting the line to also get those.
Yeah.
I think the sentiment across the board has been from people that got them for the most part was like, I thought this was pretty cool. And, I only need Lion-O, maybe Mum-Ra, but whatever. But once I got them in hand, that this transported me back to my childhood in a way that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is like, when I was a kid and my hand was only this big, my Lion-O was this big and it looked like this. Now as an adult, I'm holding this Lion-O, it has that almost kid-like proportion again. Like it's so much bigger than my hand and it's the colors I had when I was a kid and just, oh my God, I think the feedback we heard across the board, surprisingly to us as to most of the people that bought them, were, I thought these were cool, but these hit me way harder in the heart than I thought they were going to do.
Yeah, and that size comparison to childhood, that's a good point. And I think it hits home the most with Mum-Ra, because even though that figure isn't really much bigger than the cartoon Mum-Ra that you guys put out, it seems like he is, because I've experienced that figure kind of before, and now he's gigantic and all grown up. And so, yeah,
you remember him being massive as a kid.
Yeah.
Compared to the other Thundercats. And it's like, oh, it's 6 inches tall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, now it's like, no, it's massive again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a really, that's like I said, that's a really fun series. And hopefully we'll get to, I was thinking about, gosh, all of the toy versions, because there are some that are pretty different. Like, I know Retaro's just coming in series 7, but he's got a very different toy. Tigra's got that weird thing where he had 2 different shaped heads in the old toy line too. And it's like, I was thinking about, it's like, these are very different from the cartoon versions too. So it makes for some, I think important variations on them.
There'll be a moment, I think for us as well. We weren't really planning to do a second wave of toy, but because so many people were like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much I love this, that we're definitely looking at doing another wave of toy. But it's a little ways out yet.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that's good, and I'm excited for that. We've got some more waves coming, but before we get to them, we got to say the Thunder Tank. It's here. It's arrived. I am using the 3rd space in my garage for it now, because we've seen the videos, we've seen Josh holding up the box, and
that's always everybody's like, it's all forced perspective. It's like, no, we're just short. I'm 5'6". If I hold up a box that's this big at 5'6" and you're 6'2", the boxes are going to look like they're different sizes.
Yeah, but
and it's heavy.
Yeah, and it turned out awesome. And it's like, I've got this giant tank, and the box is beautiful that it's still here. I haven't gotten rid of the styrofoam yet, because you even embossed the ThunderCats logo on the styrofoam, which I was like, this is crazy. But this is another project that took some time. It's very different, very complicated. So that's got to be great, seeing what I think has been almost near universal positive feedback on how cool the Thunder Tank turned out.
Yeah, I really haven't, I've seen 1 or 2 comments about people's opinions based on, which screenshot you're looking at and some of the proportionality of it, but that's very much, like I said, dependent upon which screenshot you're looking at from which animation, of like, oh, like this is supposed to be higher, this is supposed to be lower, this is supposed to be bigger, this is supposed to be smaller. It's like, all right, watch the issue. It changes in the episode, much less from episode to episode. So yeah. I think we really got to a really great spot in terms of where it should be. I hate to say mathematically, but also cartoon accurate without turning it into a muscle car.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm really, it's that same thing. You work on things for a very long time. I think I've said over and over again, when people were talking about it, I was like, wait till you get it in hand, because part of it too is the heft. it is so heavy because it is so solid. It's like, this isn't just kind of like, oh, let's just kind of make something and get it out there. This is no, we're making the real thing top to bottom.
It
It's crazy.
it's like it's a very tactile piece. Getting, the figures in that front seat with their hands on the controllers, and I have the vintage Thunder Tank that still has the treads on it, and having the rubber treads on the on yours as well. That's a cool drawdown to the vintage with that. So it's very much about the experience of it,
Yeah,
just having
it's always funny because every time we got one, you always are trying to be a little bit ginger with it at first, like the jaws and some of that. You're like, I don't want to break it, like, oh, and then it snaps up, and you're like, oh, and then you're like, oh, okay, no, that's how it's supposed to work so that it stays solid.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's definitely like, okay, like the jaws snap up and you know, it took a while for people. I think it took at least 2 or 3 weeks before somebody took a picture of it in the dark with the glow in the dark eyes.
The glowing eyes, yeah. And my oldest daughter was excited when it got here, and it's like you were talking about, being ginger with moving it, and I'm kind of like that with anything that I get brand new. But she just went for it and got the claws up and the guns out and everything with it right away, and everything just snapped right into place. So that was great, and it made me just like, all right, I don't have to feel my way through this, because she just went for it. It was good.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
But it's also awesome to hear that, the two of you are experiencing it together. That's super fun.
It has a spot. I've got a spot for it. It has not been in that spot because it's been pushed around the floor down here for the 2 weeks that I've had it now, and it hasn't made its way onto the shelf, which I think is a good thing, because I gotta take this time when I can have it for it to be played with them like that. Yeah. But with the Thunder Tank, and you guys did Snake Mountain, and the Turtle Van's on the way. You've gotten to this point where you've got a pretty good history of doing some really impressive large pieces and different pieces. And I'm not here to sit and ask, okay, well, what's next as far as that goes. I think my question more is that the Thunder Tank was solicited a couple years ago. Even the Turtle Van's been a little bit now. Do you?
The Turtle Van's been a while. And I think we've talked about this before, where we've had to go back in and really retool nearly the whole van to get it. It just didn't. It was tooled up. It's right, but it's not right. It just doesn't feel right. And so there's a lot of work we had to go into on the Turtle Van. Because when it lands, I need it to be the experience that you just had, where you're like, this is everything I expected it to be, and hopefully more. And right now it was like, it's good, but it's not great. And so it's like, what do we need to do? It's like, we need to change this, we need to change this, we need to thicken up some of this stuff, we need to do this, we need to do that. There was a lot of it, especially in the engineering around the front of it, because you want the top to open, and you have doors that open, and you have the foot smasher swing out door. There's not a lot of vertical axes in there to hold it for torsion. And so really, really making it feel, even if you've got you've got the top open, the door out, and the foot smasher, foot tenderizer, actually, you've got that all open. Does it still feel rock solid or not?
Right.
Because at that point, you're just talking about a few runners and everything. So it's really, there was a lot of stuff where it just doesn't feel good enough yet.
Okay. Well, my thing is that when you're dealing with pieces like this that are complicated, and they're at a premium because of what they are, I always err on the side of what you're saying. Let's get it right, so that when it arrives, it's what you expected and more as far as that goes. But do you think that right now, because the Turtle Van is there, and I know you want to complete projects as they come along, do you think that there is still a space for doing elaborate things like this in the lines that you work with? Because a lot of stuff has really, for better or for worse, has changed since that Turtle Van went up for pre-order.
A lot of stuff has changed, for sure. We've got, between all the lines that we're working on, we have 2 more sort of big items that we are working on our side. Obviously, nothing in Turtles because we haven't delivered Turtle Van. Uh, I think one will be very obvious when we announce it. You'll be like, I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I knew it was coming.
All
Come
right.
on.
All right.
And then I think the other one's a stretch. The other one's a real stretch. We're trying to race to see if we can show something at San Diego for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we'll be able to or not, if it'll be far enough along. But it probably won't even go up to pre-order till more like September or October,
Gotcha.
even if we have something to show there. But it's definitely big, but it's not in the way you would expect. And it's not, I don't think it's the line anyone's expecting either. I think it's going to be like, oh, I had no idea I would have never guessed that was coming.
Yeah.
And it's either going to do really well or no one's going to buy it. And I don't know which one it's going to be. So it's
So
definitely going to be kind of a Kickstarter-y, kind
yeah,
of thing.
yeah. If the support's there, move forward with it. Okay. Well, that's good to hear because it's like I try to be the eternal optimist when it comes to, my hobby and collecting and whatnot. And it's like, this Thunder takes great. We should get a whole lot of other things like this. But realities are kind of what they are. And it's good to hear that there are some things that are in development as far as that goes, because it's like, I'm always like, oh God, nobody's ever going to be able to do something like this again. But it's hopeful still.
No. I'm hopeful, but I also have to be very cognizant about,
Mm,
we're dancing around, like everybody's very financially concerned right now.
yeah.
There's a lot of uneasiness about bank closures, about theoretical recessions, about any number of other things. So, we have to be mindful of all that, but at the same time, we can't stop either
Yeah.
because then nothing gets made. So let's make something cool and fun.
Yeah. Well, speaking of cool and fun, and we're still kind of with ThunderCats, is that I said, okay, my Joes are arriving today, and ThunderCats Series 8 pre-order actually ends today. And
Ends today.
yeah, it ends today. And I have to say that the past two series have been really fun for me because we're starting to get into those characters that are a little kind of beyond the A-listers and whatnot. And with Series 8, you've got Alluro, who is the first of the very demanded Lunatics. You've got Hachiman, who is, long time demanded, but not really an A-list character. Captain Shiner. This to me is where the fun is really getting started with a lot of the line. And ThunderCats has a lot to do. I mean, do you like
there's a lot of characters left.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as people continue to buy into the line, I want to make them all.
Yeah.
We'll just kind of have to see how it keeps going. Like, obviously, we're working on wave 10 right now.
Wow.
So, because like while wave 8 is up right now, 4 months from now, wave 9's got to be ready in theory,
Yeah.
And so that means, a month before that, I've got to be doing PR approvals, and a month before that, I've got to be rendering. So I've got to be done and priced out, pretty soon.
Right.
In terms of sculpt and pricing. So we're actually working on 10 right now, like line listing, and not line listing, but we've done the line list. Now it's sort of initial sculpts, initial things like that. Wave 9's pretty well in hand. And then, we'll just kind of see. The reality is obviously the further you get down into a line, there's a whole lot of people that are like, I need Lino and Mumra, and I need a couple other people, but I don't need, these characters. Where there's other people that absolutely love it. So as long as we've got enough people, I want to keep going. There's no indication yet. It's definitely smaller than it used to be, but there's no indication as of yet that the fan base has tired of the product.
Yeah. And talking about Lion-O and some of the core characters, I think we talked about the toy versions, but there are other versions I think that are fun to explore. But I felt bad because Wily Kit is obviously, I guess you could consider the anchor of this wave, and the Thunder Kittens weren't really high on my radar, simply, and it's unfair, simply because I have the old Mattel versions, and I was like, okay, that kind of takes the edge off for them. But I've got to say, there's something about, well, I know what it is, that the accuracy and the personality of that figure that pushed her way up kind of to the front of the line for this, for me, with someone who has a compatible figure for this, but the portraits especially for her is just, I think, phenomenally ahead of what we have gotten in the past. And was that something that you guys wanted to kind of push in terms of making it different, bringing out more, you know, character on something? It's unfair to say because you haven't had your crack at it, but you know, there has been something that's existed before.
No, there's something that exists, and there's a certain part where it's like, how different is it going to be?
Right.
I want to make something that if we can improve upon it, of course, that's the first goal. Second goal is to make it unique. But the third point is to not make it so divergent that it doesn't make sense. And also, if you've already got the original, you know, LunaCats, you can just, you know, I'm cool, I got mine.
Yeah.
But for somebody else, it's like, hey, I'm interested in, like you were saying here, I'm interested in what these could be. It's like, oh, wait, these are different. And there is something unique about them. It's not just simply a reissue, if you will.
Yeah.
And so we definitely tried to make sure that it was available, if you will, to both people, which is if you did have the other ones, it wasn't necessary. But if you were that person that was really into it, they're different enough where you're like, oh no, this is cool, I want this as well.
That winking alternate portrait is so much in her character and was something that, you know, I wasn't expecting, because now the bluegrass where he's given his wink for the thumbs up and now Wily Kit's got that's something that's working out really well for me, I guess. It's a lot of the
mental note, make winking heads just for friends.
But yeah, I was, you know, even for the ones that I was like, okay, well, I know why this figure is going to be here because it needs to anchor it, and you guys haven't done that yet. It's nice to have a surprise when a character that you've had multiple figures of in the past still pulls you in as, you know, a refreshing new version and something that brings something that other stuff hasn't before.
Right,
so
right.
Yeah.
Trying to have fun here.
Yeah. So a few months probably. So ThunderCats, we're probably going to be due for you know, even though 8 is ending, pre-order is ending now, we do the 4 months math, we've got that going. I checked the updates on the site as far as the status of, you know, Series 7, and it looks like that's rolling along. And then you've got Jaga and the Brutes too, so you've been able to kind of fill in between waves with some like one-off releases, I guess, right?
Yeah, Ghost Jaga has already landed, correct?
Tigra, the invisible Tigra. Yeah.
Tigra.
Yeah.
All right. I was like, wait, hold on.
The current
Invisible
continuity Jaga is, I think, September or something like that. But
I can't remember some days. It's really embarrassing. This is what happens when your hair starts to fade. You get gray.
Get the Reed Richards.
ThunderCats. I don't remember ThunderCats.
But that's a fun release that I think is, you know, definitely necessary because it's congruent with the ThunderCats that we have, you know, at the Ghost, and the Reptilians were a really fun one to fill in as well. So with ThunderCats especially, been kind of peppering in some releases in between as we wait. I think October is the current hopeful date for Series 7, so there'll be a few things that land before that.
Yeah, and things are moving much faster. You know, we've got, you know, through an international agency, we've got a couple people inside China now that work for us, where beforehand, you know, we still can't go, but we've got a couple people there that work for us now that are locals over there, just to get in the factories to help move things along. So
that's great.
It's incredibly complicated legally to do.
I bet, but that's something that I think, unless you're really into the inside baseball of it as an outsider or dealing with it, that's important to have someone there, be able to send someone there to be able to, you know, move things along and check on things.
I mean that's why G.I. Joe Wave 2 didn't leave last week, because I sent somebody there to do spot checks on one of the figures. I need you to spot check this because I'm concerned about it. So they went down to the factory and it was like literally like pull one out of that palette, 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 pull them all apart and make sure it's right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good double or triple check before things go out the door. So
It gets quintuple or sextuple, but at the same time, like
a
stuff
lot of
still gets
checks
through.
happen.
A lot of checks happen and things still show up where you're
Yeah.
like, how did that make it through? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, exciting for ThunderCats because, like I said, now we can get into like the weirdos and like the one shotters from the cartoon that are really the like they're the Modocs of the ThunderCats world. Just the weirdos that really appeal to me when we're talking about those kind of universe builders, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but another line that is currently open for pre-order has hit I don't know, it may not mean a whole lot, as far as, you're making them and you're planning these, but a Series 10 for an Ultimates line, I think is a pretty big landmark in TMNT.
Yes.
Series 10 right now.
The highly politicized launch of TMNT, which I honestly were very close to working out some things with the licensor, and I think that we're going to pull back and relaunch TMNT.
Really?
Wave 10. I think we're going to, like I said, we'll see when this in the next few days. We're hoping to announce that we're able to pull back Rat King and redesign Rat King, and then we will replace Rat King with Karai. And then TMNT Wave 10 will have Karai as well as Rocker and
April and Casey.
Yeah, April and Mirage Casey. So that will be Wave 10, and we will pull Rat King out and swap him with Karai. And then Wave 11 will have the revised Rat King.
Really?
So obviously there's, I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the interwebs of the world and everything else like that. Turtles gets very complicated. There's a lot of partners and what you can and can't do. I think we have found, and I think that people's reaction to Rat King, while many people were like, oh, it's a cool Rat King, it's not the Rat King that they were hoping for it to be, which is fair to say. And so we've really worked back with the team and approvals and finding a way to get Rat King in the zone where I think people are expecting it to be.
All right. Well, that's really interesting and I think cool to hear because for a couple of different reasons because one of the things that I was going to talk about is that it seemed like this wave was very different because we've had kind of 3 variations on characters and then one with the Rat King that is, it's got a little bit of, unique touch to it and whatnot. So I was
Unique
kind of
touch.
going there in terms of, is this how, the line's evolving or just kind of working within the parameters that you can?
I don't want to, there is no, you just got it's how do we there's a lot of competing factors at play here and we pushed the direction a little bit one way to make things easier to get through and it was just a little too far, and so then we've got to come back and find justifications for design choices that we make. So everything that we submit, we've got to have a lot of justification of where it's coming from, why it exists, where it came from, all of those kind of things. And so in the case of Rat King, when he shows up in some other places, he doesn't look the same as he does. I'm trying not to sound like I'm laying the blame on anybody. I'm not. It's Rat King, if you look at the comics, is very different than Rat King in the cartoon, which is very different.
Video game looks different too.
Exactly. The video game we looked at a lot, here. So having to, we know what we want these things to look like, but you've got to be able to justify them within the larger universe, if you will. So there's a lot of work that has to go into like, especially when you're talking about accessories.
Mhm.
Where did those accessories show up? You know, does that accessory show up in a comic? Does that accessory show up in a cartoon? Does that accessory show up in a video game? Does that accessory show up on a toy?
Mhm.
You know, and then we're making in this stage, you know, other partners are maybe making things that look like cartoons.
Right.
Other partners may be making things that look like something else. So you've got to make sure that you're then not stepping on anybody else's toes either.
Right. Right.
And that dance just gets more and more I don't know. It's become a more complicated dance than it used to be.
Mhm.
You know, the more popular something gets, the more people look at it.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so in that regard, Rat King was a very difficult one. Rat King, you know, another Rat King had just recently come out.
Mhm.
So you're really trying to find the white space that we can work in that doesn't step on anybody's toes. And there can be a level, you know, in submissions, what other people, it's not just what I'm comfortable with, it's what other people are comfortable with.
Mhm.
And in here, I think Rat King just got too far away. And so we then, you know, same thing. All of our partners' goal is to make the best product that the fan wants. So
Sure.
then we were able to come back here and go, okay, hey, you know, we've crossed a line here. How do we find some middle ground?
Yeah.
And where can we come back to? And I think, you know, everybody involved was very willing to come back and help find new places to go, or at the same time, you know, then you still have to get everybody to approve it, design it, color it up. You got to then we got to write like, okay, how are you going to handle this change? What is that? I got to get the copy. I got to get the social post approved.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of mechanisms that go into. I can't even just post it on Instagram and talk about it.
Right.
Like even before, like you brought this up, we hadn't planned on talking. I hadn't thought about it because I was focused on some other things. But it's like, you know, technically I've even had conversations of how do I talk about this?
Right.
You know, and it's like, okay, here's what I can say, here's what I can't say.
Okay.
You know, and like I said, there's nothing negative about it
Mhm.
per se. It's just more it's, you know, at least when we were talking to some of our partner, you know, they're like, it's not typical for a company to just go change what they're going to make. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm making the stuff that the fans and I want. And
Right.
if I've got my fans telling me they don't want it, then, you know, I want to come back and really talk about what it is. Like when, you know, and if we go way back, especially on some of the master stuff, way back,
Way
you know,
back.
we'll be like,
Where
hey,
it started.
hey, this thing isn't right. This thing isn't, and we'd be like, oh, hey, we need to fix this.
Mhm.
And then send out a replacement or something. We're always listening about how we can make the product better. And I think with Rat King, it was, you know, a pretty overwhelming statement around, while there were people that definitely were still into it because they like Rat King.
Mhm.
It wasn't exactly the Rat King that they were hoping for.
Okay. Okay.
Have I
So
overtalked it yet?
no, no, no. I think that's very nice to get that kind of understanding, because people don't perception is reality, and not having kind of the backstory about what you have to do in order to make things work that the way that you want them and need them to work. It's good to hear that, and you're right. Not a lot of people will change to get to where, you know, they feel that they ultimately want to be, and where the fans, closer to where, you know, fans and whatnot want to be. So I'm of the mind, if okay, Rat King, if he moves to series 11, that's cool, because you said we're going to sub in Karai, which is something that I was going to touch on too, is that, you know, given the opportunity in this format to do characters like Karai, or, you know, there are two punk frogs that are still like characters that were never kind of done in this style, to bring them into the line, I think that's really exciting too.
Yeah, and you know, if I'm overly analyzing some of our line planning, it's like, when you talk about those characters that haven't really been done, it's like, well, I can't dump 3 or 4 of those in a wave.
Mhm.
I need to kind of pace them out with some of the things that you want to continue your line so that they feel like they're a natural extension of it. Or if I just showed up and made you, Karai, a couple punk frogs and something else, you'd be like,
Right,
well, this part of the same line or not?
right, right, right.
So um yeah, but the Karai figure, is, I think, as most people saw, it got a little leaked out there. So
Yeah.
Karai's done. So
Very, very-
let's take the Rat King out of the conversation. Let us go back. Let us enjoy Rat. We're
okay.
gonna come back on Rat King. We're gonna give you the Karai instead.
Wow, that's huge, and that's cool. I think on both accounts for that, getting Kurai and revisiting Rat King and seeing him a little bit later, that's great, and that leaves a Leonardo, which I mean that music group is my favorite turtle variation
Mhm.
that have ever been done, so I'm excited to see him. But the Mirage inspired Casey in the red and the deco, that's something that hasn't ever really been done. And I gotta say that the April kind of ninja tribute to the past, I think the designs that you guys went with is much more successful from a ninja aspect than maybe some leopard print version that I had when I was a kid, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a moment too of like I said, that these are the evolved versions, if you will.
Hmm.
And it's like what would that character could have or would have been?
Yeah.
You know, there's an aspect of that too that comes into some of these plays where some of the weapons and things that you get choices of, you're like, oh, okay, that I didn't expect that. That's something new. That's different, but that feels like the old thing, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Series 10, I mean, it's like I said, I think it's a bit of a landmark wave. It's the first double digit Ultimates wave that we got to, and it's gonna definitely have a bit of a story around it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool that you guys are going to be doing that, and I look forward to the official announcement.
Yeah,
As
the official,
far
I
as
think
that
we're just waiting for all the press release, if you will,
goes.
copy all be approved. And as long as that's approved, then we'll be announcing that. But we're kind of staying a little bit quiet until then. So you got the scoop of all scoops here,
Oh
man.
man, we'll go
Oh,
get
come to the
this.
Fwoosh for the latest news.
Get this video up tomorrow.
Exactly.
For
How
sure.
quickly can I get this video up today?
I'm gonna like wake up cranky Robo from his nap because he's kind of on a vacation right now and be like, sorry, you gotta get this up
Yeah.
right.
Where's Robo on vacation at?
He's doing a staycation, just kind of stepping away from
Uh,
the virtual world for a couple of weeks, which I think was deserving.
yeah.
So
All right. All right.
yeah,
All right. We
yeah.
wish you well, Robo.
Yeah, we'll hold it down with all the cool stuff while you're gone. But so it's Series 10, which means we've got, 3 other waves that are, kind of all in process right now, which I have got to go back and look. There's a lot of stuff as far as TMNT goes
There's a
that
lot of stuff for
looking to hit this
TMNT.
year. So
Yeah. I mean, Wave 11, Rat King aside,
mhm.
is pretty well in the books. Wave 12, we're in the midst of, and we're scripting 13 and 14.
Wow. Wow. So Turtles, with even with the complicated dance, is still very much pushing along and is, I would assume, seemingly successful. For you guys, I know it's been really successful for a lot of the collectors out there. So it's good to hear that.
It's a super fun line. It's a
Yeah.
super fun line. And there's some really cool things coming up for that line that I think people will be excited about.
Cool. Cool. Well, I don't know how we, go bigger as far as the news scoop goes from Rat King for Turtles. So we will we'll let that one sit, and people will be excited to see the change, and then the reimagined Wave 10 with Karai, because like I said, that's a long-standing TMNT character that has never had an action figure, so that's really cool in and of itself, man.
Hey, Karai, come on out to. I think the copy that I wrote was that Karai has shown up and scared away the Rat King.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, okay. Well, you have some other things that are open for pre-order right now. One that is near and dear to my heart is the latest wave of Disney Ultimates, which is kind of pared down in terms of the number of releases, but it's celebrating the Rescuers' 45th anniversary, and there's a lot going on here that I think is really cool. That Bernard and Bianca are coming in as a 2-pack, and they're getting proper action figures, and then Penny
They're coming scaled up,
and
but in the Dragonfly boat and everything. Yeah.
yeah. So what was kind of the thought behind not only putting them together, but then, giving you're satisfying both, right? You're getting proper action figures, and then you're getting scale accurate versions of them with Penny as well. This is I think this is a very well put together small wave, but a good one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we started with Penny,
Mhm.
star of the show, and we have scaled her within the Ultimates realm, and in as much, you get tiny pocket-sized Bernard and Bianca.
Yeah.
And when we looked at your villainess, and then I was just like, okay, if you're going to make her, you have to make the crocodiles, and then all of a sudden it just becomes this gigantic thing that we can't really get into.
Yeah.
And I was like, really after Penny, Bernard and Bianca play such an integral part in the movie, and I just have such a soft spot for them. I think with any kid that saw that movie does. But I was like, you want them to be able to actually move.
Mhm.
So then it's like we have to break scale, make them sort of roughly scale. But I'm like, if you're going to make them, what do you give them? How do you start going down that route? And I'm like, I kind of feel like you have to have the leaf boat with the dragonfly, the
Yeah,
whole
with
thing.
Everroot, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like this is a really sweet moment, but also now you're talking about a big boat, 2 figures plus access, and then it's like, all right, this is going to be expensive now, but you're getting this whole almost play set like piece, and short of making the old steamboat or the well,
Yeah, the well, right? Yeah.
yeah, terrifying. Sort of making that. I mean, that is the Rescuers, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I just this is one that I've always loved and always wanted. Like as a kid, that movie was spooky to me.
Yeah.
It was scary. Like she was a legitimate villain. Like
right, because you could meet someone like her in the real world, right?
yeah, she was legitimately scary.
Yeah.
In that, more than anything, is just an abusive parent kind of thing, or stepmom. There's always evil parents and stepsisters or whatever, but
the evil orphanage keepers, those were big in the late 70s, early 80s as far as movies go.
But she always, where Cruella de Vil, you never really thought she was going to skin the dogs.
Right.
Where this lady was like,
yeah, Madame Medusa's gonna drown a kid.
yeah, like she's kind of half like she's off her rocker in not a good way. And then the well with the skull and the dark, and it's just like it was a spooky movie for me as a kid, and in a way that wasn't fun, like say Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman. Like that was spooky but kind of fun, right? Like, pretty cool.
Right.
This was a little bit like, no, this is genuinely like not cool.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I just really wanted to do the Rescuers. That said, of anything that we've done Disney-wise, this will be a very strong litmus test on whether or not people will support it or not. And I don't know how it's going to go. They're Disney as a whole at Ultimates has just done okay. And I'm not saying that in a weird negative way. It's just we found more and more that adult Disney collector is much more of an experience driven collector. Like I save my money to go to the parks or go on a cruise or go on a trip rather than I want to have a shelf full of Disney product.
Mm.
You know, it's been interesting because you would think like, who doesn't buy this stuff? And you're like, oh, actually, lots of people don't buy this stuff.
I'm seeing
So
dollar signs going through my brain because I'm both parts of that. So
yeah, but you know, it's interesting. So when you go to something like The Rescuers, you're not going like, oh, it's Disney and we're a little bit over here. You're like, oh no, we're way over here.
Mhm.
And either people are going to come or they're not. And I have no idea what's going to happen with Rescuers. I hope that people show up because I really love to see it happen because I think it's one of the better Disney movies of that
Yeah.
era, just for all the other reasons that we talked about. Like they weren't pulling punches the same way, they weren't trying to pander to kids the same way.
Mhm.
It wasn't safe per
Yeah.
se. And so I find it to be very compelling. That does not necessarily mean that the adult Disney collector is also looking for that. We'll see. We'll see. And like, I know that you're going to like it because you are the kind of person that comes along and goes like, Robin and Prince, you know, you made Little John. I mean, you haven't made Little John. You like, you haven't made the other, like, give me everybody from Robin Hood.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I want the guards.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I want all that stuff, but that doesn't mean that
You
everybody else
gotta be able to say I made action figures of characters named Trigger and Nutsy.
I think that's just it. It's just, you know, when you think, you know, there's millions of Disney fans out there, and there are, but what are they actually chasing? And sometimes I think it's much more the idea of Disney,
Hmm.
the emotion of Disney, than the actual characters and product of Disney. I could be wrong, but
Well, this is the second Disney Ultimates wave in a row where you've kind of gone to, I guess, themed wave. Does that have something in the planning of it too? Because Nightmare
oh,
Before Christmas.
we definitely ran into people not understanding at all what we were doing.
Uh-huh.
You know, where like when we did Turtles and we said, here's Leonardo and three other people, they went, oh, that means there's at least four waves. I'm going to get all four turtles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we were like, here's Alice. They're like, all right, well, where's Snow White? I mean, the blah, where's the Queen?
Right,
Where's the White Rabbit? I
right.
said Snow White. I was going Queen Rabbit. It didn't
Yeah.
work. You know, or here's, you know, Robin Hood, or we made Prince John first.
John
Like,
first, yeah.
well, how can you make Prince John but not make Robin Hood? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
Mhm.
Where if we had said, okay, here's a wave of uh, Alice in Wonderland, here's a wave of Robin Hood, that probably would have worked better.
Okay.
Versus the, oh, we're going to get these eventually, but we're wading in and getting a little bit of everything. Like we went in with appetizers when everybody just wanted main courses.
Wanted the main course, yeah, yeah. That's a good way to describe it. Okay, so hopefully to your point that Rescuers is successful, and so would it be fair to say that we could probably expect things more kind of in the same thematic tone going forward then?
Yeah,
as far
yeah.
as that goes? Okay.
Yeah, where we would isolate to a single release and then make
Right.
things around a movie.
Because I'm just saying that Mr. Toad, it's like 4 main characters and out, and you got them all done. So- but that's going. You said Rescuers was over here. Mr. Toad is even further in that direction. But you know, we'll keep fingers crossed. Okay. Well, I hope that Rescuers does well because those are fun figures. I like being able to have the scale, but have proper action figures to them. And like you said, McDonald's, I think, released Christmas ornaments of Bernard and Bianca that were flocked when I was a kid. And those, I don't think those ever hung on the Christmas tree because I was, you know, those were the toys that I had for them. So it feels like that's even coming a little bit full circle for me. So that's cool. That's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's I'm so excited about Rescuers, but I'm also approaching it with a great deal of caution, for lack of a better. I don't want to get my heart broken right away.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers drop too. That's another kind of themed wave, even if it's more kind of like a color themed, but like
It wasn't an intentional thing.
Yeah, okay.
It
But
just sort of worked its way out.
like Rescuers, it's a smaller wave. Was that done just to kind of keep things, you know, kind of contained with that? Is that something that, you know, smaller waves is something that you're looking at going forward, or was
We're
it just
looking at
happened
going
to be
forward
figures?
across the board, you know, as we've already said, you know, people kind of come back and said, you know, it's a lot to collect all these lines. It's
Mhm.
expensive.
Yeah.
Power Rangers was one where in the beginning we always had like 4 main characters plus a Zord.
Mhm.
So it was 5 characters. So it was a lot. And same thing, Turtles had been 5 for a couple waves. We went down to 4.
Yeah.
Just, why Karai is ready. Same thing is like, how do we make this a little easier for everybody to collect?
Yeah.
Like, to start slimming it down. And on the Power Rangers side, that customer was definitely sort of telling us like 5 is just a lot. And we wanted to keep the Zord in there. And then just looking at some of the different choices and characters we've made as we started to rebalance it, this one ended up making more sense to come as a 3-pack. I mean, or 3 figures rather than 5. Like scaling it down to 4, it didn't thematically make as much sense. It kind of felt like there was an odd man out in there. So we were like, okay, yank that one. Then it's like, but then it's only 3. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. It's okay that it's only 3.
Yeah.
You got the White Ranger, you got Tiger Zord, and you got Madam Woe. And Madam Woe is really the one that I'm the most excited about in this wave. Like, you haven't gotten Madam Woe.
Well, and I'm not quite as well versed in Power Rangers as I am as some of your other properties, but she reminds me very much of a ghost from like an old Japanese ghost story type of thing. So I think that's my favorite of this wave as well. Even though I'm sure there are a lot of Tommy fans screaming right now that how can you not like Tommy the best?
Look, the White Ranger, Green Ranger scenario thing, that's its own beast. We know who those fans are. But you don't really get the White Tiger Zord too much, and then you definitely have not had a chance to get Madam Woe.
Yeah.
So how do we jump in there and make things that are cool and exciting for you in your collection?
Well, and there's a lot of Power Rangers coming soon too. So that collection is, this may be a 3-figure wave, but by the time you get there, if you're going all in, you're up to what, like 15 figures already. So
there's a lot of figures coming very quickly on Power Rangers too. The catching up that happens over the next few months in terms of what people have in their hands is, has already started, but is pretty outrageous.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, here's a 1.5 years worth of product that's fun. All shows up in 6-7 months.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's exciting when it does arrive, but it just goes to show that there's a lot going on right now, and we have been able to talk for a solid hour about things that are pretty much current, which is cool, and I appreciate you giving the updates on stuff like that. But before we go,
there's a couple of things to talk about before we go.
All right,
what were you going to lean into? I've got a guess. I grabbed a thing just to see if this was what you were going to guess.
Let's do it.
And I think you want to talk about it, but I don't know if you want to talk about it. So am I right or am I wrong?
All right, let's do it. Let's grab the thing and see. Oh, all right. Yes, that was definitely one of the things. Because that was you guys, I mean, I've been looking forward to that new ride because I've stared at it under construction for like 4 years in a row or something, but you kept this dead quiet secret the whole time, which is rare in this industry, it seems.
Yeah, it was this is a Disney Parks exclusive. So technically, while it is a ReAction figure, we will not be selling it. The only place you can get Tron ReAction figures is at the park. You'll be able to obviously get them in Orlando and Singapore where the rides are, and then I believe they'll have them in lesser quantities, but in some of the other parks as well. But I don't know because I'm not in charge of Disney parks buying and selling. But I know that this is definitely synced up for, this was all sort of based on the launching of the ride.
Yeah.
In Orlando. So
well,
we got carded figures. I got 3 light cycles. I got
the cycles are what get me, man.
Well, and then we re-engineered the inside of the light cycles so that the figures lay down with their hands out front. Because that always drove me crazy as a kid that he sat in it like this. I was like, no, you got to reach in and go, wah, and then you got to have your head looking out the front while you're driving.
Well, I don't even have to really say anything to get my wife to plan another Disney vacation, but now this is going to be one where it's like, I got to go get some Tron. We got to go ride Tron. So here
The
we
other
go.
thing, the other thing is that they're all blue glow in the dark plastic.
Oh wow. So the blue glow, kind of like the Foot Soldier and Baxter kind of glow.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
right.
They all glow in the dark.
Cool. Cool. Well, that one was definitely a surprise.
But that was not the one clearly you were leading into. So what were
No,
you leading
I was
into?
actually going to wait. I was going to work my way backwards to that, but then also go all the way back to January when you guys did something that was kind of new, where you kind of said, "Hey, we're not showing anything yet, but here are some properties that we may be getting into, as the year goes on." And I'm not asking about, what is it that we're going to see, but two that really stood out for me for Sesame Street and the very unexpected but very welcome Richard Scarry. So I was just going to ask if you had kind of a general time frame when we might be hearing more about those, because it's killing me right now.
Is it killing you?
It is. It is.
Yeah, no, when Toy Fair would happen, we would send out like a week of teasers, kind of things like that. So that was kind of the play around this was, the upcoming teasers. Richard Scarry is not that far away. I have to go all the way over here. I don't think you can see my screen, right?
No, cannot.
Wonderful, because I don't. June will be the first thing on Busy Town, Richard Scarry.
Awesome.
And I think when we're talking about Sesame Street, the first thing is in August. Double check a couple places.
Well, Richard Scarry is kind of like the lens that is like the perfect lens for this planet for me. And I don't usually I don't usually try to come on and say, hey, but this board book.
Oh man, I Am a Bunny is my favorite. I love that one. The illustrations are so good in that.
So this is the board book that has been read between. Okay, so I have 3 daughters. One's 11 now, but I've got a 4 and a 5-year-old too. This book has been read almost every single night for the past 10 years because my littlest one, especially now, she will not go to bed without either me reading it or her reading it now that she has it memorized. So Nicholas has got a cool name too. So if he can find his way into something, you'd have a house full, at least one house full of people that would be eternally grateful for that.
I Am a Bunny. Like I've got quite a few original Richard Scarry illustrations. Some of the early stuff when it's like the animals and costumes before Busy Town really heads up. I'm blanking on the name. The one where it's the bear in the woods that's like the hunter.
Oh yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I think I had part of that in a bigger Richard Scarry book or something.
Yeah, it got retconned later, kind of thing. But those earlier, like the I Am a Bunny book, like the really dark backgrounds on all that stuff with
this is what I picture when I think of winter. Is this
that? Yes. Yeah. The one in the middle with like the dark forest green with leaves. I'm blanking on that one. What he's actually saying on that page, but those.
Is it that one?
There's one more. But
it's not is it fall?
See, we're going to go through this whole book and no one else is going to care.
It's only like 8 pages.
Yeah, it is only like 8 pages. But that era of illustration of him, like when he gets to Busy Town, I'm not saying he gets lazy. He doesn't. But it's much more, it's not about the backgrounds anymore. It's not about the elaborate costumes and the elaborate painting. It's about the gestures of the people as they move through and everything. And so those old paintings they're just so incredible. And I Am a Bunny is my favorite as well. The one where he's blowing the dandelion. That's
okay. Yes, I blow the dandelion seeds
into the air. That one.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, I Am a Bunny is amazing, but we're not doing anything with I Am a Bunny at this time. We're focusing on Busy Town.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, and it'll just give me opportunities to bring the book back down and bother you about it in the future. But it's good to hear because yeah, that I am in love with this book, and I'm glad my girls like it too. And like I said, the lens of Richard Scarry, like we mentioned the backgrounds and stuff like that, that's what this planet should look like as far as
Yes, exactly. It should totally be, bananas gorilla driving in a car, and somebody,
yes.
having a pickle car would be amazing.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, well, June and August for those.
Yep.
Very, very exciting. And I'm sure I'll be trying to bother you once we get closer or once more has been revealed about those so we can chat it up. But you have been very, very gracious with your time once again. We have
Hey, I'll talk about toys in general, and especially my toys anytime.
well, that's great, but it's always definitely appreciated. So thank you so much for coming on again and dropping some pretty big news, but then just talking about some fun stuff as well. And I look forward to the next time we'll get to chat, because I mean, even if it's only a month or two away, a ton of stuff's going to drop between now and then, so we'll have more to talk about.
There's a lot of stuff coming, so we didn't even talk about GI Joe, and it's sitting right there.
My seriously, it's probably on the porch at this point.
Hey, but thank you then to all the Fwoosh friends who stayed on for an hour plus to listen to us ramble about this too.
Yeah.
See, now we're all friends.
We're all Flynn's on the Fwoosh.
Exactly. Fwoosh friends.
And until next time, we will catch everyone on the Fwoosh. So thank you very much. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, everyone.